podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Loud. All right, we are recording Factory of the Future.
Hey, another
Alexandria
new
Burek,
episode.
how are you today?
Hey, I'm great. AW, always good to see you. Always good to chat with you. I think today I would like to bring to the table an IRL, so in real life business scenario. It was something that came up quite fresh for me. I'm dealing with a little bit of closed-mindedness with a coworker of mine. We're on equal playing field. Our jobs interact. And I was bringing a solution, a potential solution or opportunity for us to, kind of work together and explore as a potential solution for our organization. And I thought I had done the right things by pulse checking and saying, hey, there's this idea. It kind of intersects with both of our jobs. Would you be open to having a conversation about this? Just to evaluate whether this is something we might want to consider or not. I got a green light. I was like, okay, great. Look to set up a meeting. I should have known the first time that when it was offered as a face-to-face meeting and it was, no, we can have it over a call. I was kind of that was the first rung down I was put on. And then immediately straight out of the gates, we were on this call and I could instantaneously pick up on something that I can't place. And I kind of tried to set the tone for the call and saying, hey, this is why we're here having this conversation. I thought maybe this would help you in XYZ way. And, you expressed that you were open-minded to having this conversation. And to say the least, it went terribly. And this is somebody I have a good relationship with. So I was wondering if this is something like you've ever come across in your experience in business and what you recommend to anybody in the audience who might be dealing with something similar.
Yeah, so if you haven't experienced something in your life, I think you have been living in the igloo because it's pretty common. And what I think what Alexandria is alluding to is this is a male. Probably you didn't mention his age, but I'm going to say it's probably
Same
around
age.
my age. Huh?
No, actually, same age as me.
Same age as you. Okay. So around there, and you've been working together for a few years, so you know each other's kind of rapport, and likely, it's I'm what's going through my head is that there's something else, and that something else is it may be insecurity, it may be something that's bothering him outside of work, but just the way you were surprised by it, I think it doesn't really have anything to do with you. You just happen to be around and he's venting.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you're the target of it. And I don't know if he just wants to feel like he wants to be right about something and this is a way of building up his security or not.
Yeah.
But that's what's going through my mind right now.
Yeah. And, I'm personally just really taken aback by this because I deal with people who are resistant to change all the time. I'm a constant changer in every role I've ever been in. I'm always changing and trying new things. And I work with truck drivers, mechanics. I work with factory workers, literally all the people who are in general the least interested and open-minded to change. And I've usually had pretty good success with overcoming some closed-mindedness. And this one is just really catching me. And I couldn't agree with more in thinking that there might be something else festering. And I guess what I'm looking at is, okay, how do I move forward? Because my initial reaction was he was late to get on the call, and we called the call 15 minutes early to give you an idea how well things went. And so then I was like, I want to call him and address this immediately, because typically if there's a situation, I try to solve it immediately. And luckily I didn't do that. So I was like, okay. I did text him. I was like, hey, I would like to talk to you about this. Sync up, tomorrow. So at least let us sleep on it. But I don't know what to say. I mean, usually I'm pretty good about these things, but I just really don't know what to say. Like, the only thing I can think of is, hey, I'm really thrown off by this strong opposition and almost territorial behavior that I experienced. Like, my objective was to help you and to bring to the table a potential solution. And I'm just really thrown off if this is like, if there's all this resistance to it, why would I even have agreed to have this call in the first place?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you advice, and
Good.
I know the answer to this, and it's very simple, by the way. And I'm going to share a story with you how I handled it.
Cool.
But what we're talking about is, I've been learning a little bit about this too, between the difference between transformation and change management. A transformation is a completely, let's just take everything upside down and turn it around. Where change management is, slightly changing things around us. For me, when I worked into a corporate role several years back, I was working for a company, and one of our assignments was we had just acquired all these co-packers, and we wanted them to follow similar suits of manufacturing practices. So it was the concept of total productive maintenance or manufacturing, depends on what you want to call it. But part of my job was, as a regional person, coming into these sites and having them adapt to these different processes and getting their employees engaged. Because one thing we know is when you engage the employees, they're more apt to be on the interest of supporting the company.
Yeah.
And for me, had a lot of energy. I was probably your age about the time, and one of the facilities or factories I was working at, or I was assigned to, because I had, I think, 4 at the time. But I was kind of the go-getter. I wanted to prove that, I can do this. I mean, right at the time, it was the largest factory we had in our company, and a very strong plant general manager. And he was, cordial but very professional, and he was open and welcome, but he didn't like seeing change on it. And I often saw that I just when I go about change, it's kind of a gentle nudge, nudge, nudge. But I was also trying to get all these other factories on alignments, because I just felt, I want to show them the best of this. And I go into the factory one day, and they're doing a Gemba walk, which is just, walking around, checking on their metrics and other things like that. And I'd always take along if I'm at the factory. And I remember one time, or what he did, we were walking in the warehouse. He looks at me and goes, hey, AW, we're not going to do this stuff anymore. We don't have time for this. And if you're not going to be here to support me, we're not doing this. And that's it. And I remember him walking back to his office, and my office was actually really close to his. So I can see him slamming the door, and I'm like, this is not going to go well in my career.
What did you say to him?
I didn't say anything to him. I just listened.
Okay.
And I said, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I don't want to do anything. I'm done with this stuff.
Oh my God.
And then I go on and I call my boss, and I said, hey, this isn't going well. He's saying go out. And he was, he had he was an advocate early on, but he was getting pressure from outside on performance, because they still needed to perform at the regular numbers, but still they had to do all this other work too. Which I understood, because I had gone through that myself. And my boss and I were talking back and forth. Okay, what should we do? What you do? And this is what we did. We came back the next day and pretended nothing happened.
Are you serious?
I still had my meetings. I still showed up. But he was in a better mood. But to your point, it had to do with something it wasn't directly toward me, but he was wanting to vent about something. And it gave him an opportunity to just kind of say, like, I might have been out of line. He never apologized, but I just based on his demeanor and the way he started
Yeah.
interacting with me a couple days later, I knew that's the best apology I'm going to get. And
Yeah.
um that stuck with me forever. It was the act like nothing happened.
That is the greatest thing that I've ever heard, honestly. Like it feels like the people like the person who gets fired but then just shows up for work the next day, like pretends it happened. Like I'm just here, I'm just gonna keep going. We're just gonna sweep that right under the rug and keep moving on. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've done that with my wife too.
Oh, is that a marriage tip too? Like
It's a
respect.
marriage tip too. It's a marriage tip too. So, I mean, with your point, with your individual, I think, or he might just need a couple days just to get
Yeah,
whatever he figures out, and just make yourself available and see how he opens up and talks to you. And it might be just the apologies out there, because people are stubborn, right? They don't
yeah,
want to admit they were wrong.
yeah.
Um, but you got to
In
work with
that
them.
in that case, and like I said, like I really like this person. Like we have a lot of shared interests. We have a lot of the shared values on a lot of different things. So like there's no reason why we wouldn't get along and like have a good rapport working together. So I might do nothing and just ignore it and maybe not even talk about it ever again or at all. And then just revisit the conversation, maybe with more statistics and numbers to illustrate the true benefit financially, which obviously is my favorite thing to do. Um, and then just move on from there and let the numbers speak for themselves and just kind of brush over the experience that was just had. But it was something truly, truly interesting. Have you ever had anything else like that pop up, like where it's kind of like, oh, this is interesting, and you're like, where someone's either really nice to you or really, really combative, and like you said, you just brush it off. Is that kind of been your like business lesson in that sense, or
Well, it's been
uh,
my lifestyle. So you have to remember what I've what I s- what I do is I come into factories where they don't want me, but somebody did, and I'm going to change what they're doing, which no one likes to change. I always show this cartoon that pops up, and maybe I'll put it in this video where there's this man, he's standing on top of this pedestal, and there's this whole bunch of people out there, and they go, "Who wants change?" And they all go, "We do." And then the next question is, "Who wants to lead this change?" And no one raises their hand.
yeah.
And then the third one is says, "Who is willing to change?" And everybody's already left.
That is, yes, I would love to see that. I think that would be great. That would be absolutely great. Let's talk about some other change experiences or like some success stories that you've had, kind of coming into those moments of stepping into the factory, like you said, who wants change? We do, or somebody does. And then kind of getting over those hurdles. And then have you ever had the opportunity to go back to those original people who were probably part of what you would call a resisting group, the resistors, and see if they actually adopted and liked the change once it became normal to them, or how's that been for you?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question, because it leads into a lot. I get asked that quite a bit, not particularly in the details you mentioned, but just how do you know when it's working?
Yeah,
Because transformation, change management. I mean, either way, we recognize that there's a need for it. Um, but for me, it's it's usually a very approach. It's kind of a gentle nudge, and it's first is understanding what's in it for them,
yeah,
and what can we do to engage them. I do when I do some of these projects. One of the things we like to do to engage them is usually we'll let them pick out a piece of equipment in the factory, and I'm talking a big piece of equipment, it's the
yeah,
size of a bus,
yeah,
um, that's got low reliability. And what we'll do is I'll take them through I said the word TPM, total productive maintenance, is going through that journey of transforming the equipment and making it more reliable. And what I do is not anything that's, overly difficult. I find the original operational manual. I find the expert on the equipment, and I find a mechanic that's usually tied to that equipment. And it's always great when that mechanic has got a lot of opinions, because they talk a lot.
Yeah.
And some of our viewers are not surprised when maintenance men talk more than probably anybody else I've ever exposed to. Women, older women, young men, it's maintenance guys talk.
They do love
And
it.
it's good to have one of them, because at the end they become an advocate. Because what we take the equipment, and guess what? We fix all the problems with it, teach them how to use it correctly. And oh, by the way, that mechanic that got tired of coming in and fixing all the problems that the operator didn't know, he has to be the teacher. And one of the things we have to do is we create different successes that go on throughout that. But what makes it interesting is that it's an accomplishment. And
Yes.
so often, especially in the factory, it's mundane. It's the day-to-day grind of it. But when you turn something into like a project or something you have accomplished, you start to get that engagement, and they start operating like as a natural work team. And that's the powerful part about it. And when you ask the question, is like, what's it like when you come back later on? It's fantastic, because from some of the reasons, they always remember me. And it's usually a comment like, remember when we fixed that piece of equipment up? Well, it's back to normal again. It's not running worth anything. But a lot of times it has to do with some of the leaderships and just not understanding what goes into showing emphasis and care into it. But yeah, I've had a lot of examples on that. And that's the part of what I do, and I really enjoy it, is actually coming back and seeing it, because early on they never want me around, and they try to find anything wrong with me to get rid of me.
Yeah. And, I've been dealing with that. So we rolled out a new piece of technology recently, a new software to kind of capture what we're doing with our maintenance expense, actually e-maint, frankly, which is hilarious. Yeah. And so last year we rolled it out to our core group of users, the ones that rolled up under our corporate structure. And then this year I was tasked with kind of extending that out to the larger organization. There was a mixed group of people. Some people have already used e-maint for the factory components, and our application is for trailer maintenance. Some people, it was so awesome to see the spectrum of users' opinions. So there was, on the left hand, the people that like minute one were like, I don't have time for this, I'm not doing it. Like, okay, that's fine, I'll deal with you later. Like, that's cool. Yeah, it sounds like we're gonna have to work on a lot of other things outside of this, and it's not the system. And then there were other people on the same stroke who were like, this is great, this is so helpful. Yeah. We're going to be able to use this. Now I don't have to do that. Now I can do this. And those people, I think, are obviously easier to work with. But I think it excites me too, just to know that whenever you're putting a new process in place or you're bringing some change, if you could find and focus in on the people who are early adopters, the people who have the positive response about it, it's going to help you sell down to that other end of the spectrum of the people who are like, I don't have time for this. Once you can show them how it actually does not take that much time to, keep the machinery up and running, I think that the adoption the people that are early adopters will pull with them the resistors. That's been my experience as well. So what else do we want to talk about today?
I think that's probably coming to the end of our time.
I think so. Are we clocking out?
We're clocking out.
All right.
All right. So thanks for tuning in, and look forward to our next episode.
Yeah.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future. where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.